The clash was inevitable. Two unstoppable forces, one from the arid deserts in the west, the other from the thriving lands of the east, found themselves on a collision course. Driven by expansion, power, and the allure of incredible wealth, these two great powers, born of vastly different yet comparably ambitious cultures, converged in a battle that would alter the balance of the region and leave a legacy felt far beyond its borders. Hello, and welcome to Impactful Moments, where we explore some of the most, you guessed it, impactful moments in human history. If history is your thing, or you simply enjoy learning new topics, please consider liking and subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us to continue creating captivating, impactful historical content. In this video, we will discuss the Battle of Talas, a monumental clash of cultures. Following the death of Muhammad in 632, the Islamic world rapidly expanded its reach, stretching far beyond its Arabian Peninsula birth. Under the rule of the Rashidun caliphs, Islam spread over vast territories, including the Middle East, North Africa, and Persia. And with the rise of the Umayyads in 661, it pushed its boundaries even further, extending westward in North Africa to the Atlantic Ocean, even crossing the Straits of Gibraltar into the Iberian Peninsula. In Central Asia, however, Muslim expansion slowed as they encountered a fragmented region of tribal groups across Transoxiana, a fabulously wealthy area strategically located as a crucial Silk Road crossroads. Recognizing its value, the Umayyads invested heavily to subdue the region. Led by the skilled commander Qutayba ibn Muslim, the Umayyads gradually established control by integrating local tribal leaders into their ranks, securing dominance by 715. In parallel, far to the east, China was emerging from a period of turmoil. Following centuries of disunity, the Sui dynasty briefly reunited the country before being overthrown by the Tang, who would guide China into a golden age that would see exceptional expansion efforts. Like the Umayyads, the Tang recognized the value of Transoxiana. By the end of the 7th century, through a combination of political, diplomatic, and several military campaigns, largely against the Tibetan army to the south and the Turks to the north, they were able to establish control over the Tarim Basin, an area with key transport cities along the Silk Road that strategically connected the core of their empire to Central Asia. Despite rarely sending military expeditions west, the Tang, under their emperor Xuanzang, had developed strong diplomatic relations with the cities and tribes of Transoxiana, often bestowing ceremonial titles on their delegates and embassies to maintain strong ties. This gave the Tang strong regional power, but also brought their sphere of influence into direct conflict with the Umayyads. Over the following decades, Tang-backed forces, particularly the Turkish of Turkic tribes, who had shifted allegiance away from the Umayyads, challenged Muslim dominance in Transoxiana. Key Turkish victories at the Day of Thirst in 724 and the Battle of the Defile in 731 briefly loosened Umayyad control, allowing local autonomy for regions like Shash, modern-day Tashkent, and Fergana. However, the Umayyads reasserted control in 737 at the Battle of Karistan. These ongoing conflicts intensified the rivalry between the Tang and Umayyads, making a direct confrontation seemingly inevitable. Before such a clash could escalate, however, the Muslim world was thrown into turmoil, as the House of Abbas overthrew the Umayyads, creating the Abbasid Caliphate following the Battle of Zab in 750. The Abbasids inherited their predecessors' strategic ambitions, including control over Transoxiana, resuming their efforts to secure this critical region once the dust had settled. The Tang, meanwhile, capitalized on this upheaval by extending their hold over Central Asia. Under Korean general Gao Sang-chi, they pushed back against Tibetan forces and pacified rebellious tribes in the Hindu Kush Mountains, strengthening their grip on key trade routes and transport hubs, all while the Abbasid attention focused on internal matters. The tensions and political maneuvers finally came to a head, following a local conflict between the city-states of Fergana and Shash. The Tang, backing Fergana, captured Shash and executed its ruler, leading the ruler's son to seek Abbasid support. The Abbasids, seizing this opportunity to restore influence in the region, dispatched an army under Ziyad ibn Salih, who advanced eastward to confront General Gao on the Tang, and in July 751 the two forces met at the banks of the Talas River. Most modern sources place the Abbasid forces at roughly 30,000 troops, with the Tang fielding similar numbers, many of whom may have been Karluk Turkic mercenaries. Other accounts, however, inflate these figures considerably, noting up to 200,000 Abbasids per some Chinese sources and 100,000 Tang per Abbasid sources, highlighting a significant lack of consensus. Historical accounts tend to agree that the battle commenced with several days of intense and evenly matched warfare, with neither side able to gain a decisive advantage. The turning point, however, is subject to considerable debate. Some sources suggest that a substantial contingent of Karluk Turks had been diplomatically recruited by the Abbasids before the battle. These forces reportedly lay hidden until Zayd ibn Salih called upon them at a critical moment to attack the Tang army. In contrast, some Chinese accounts argue that the Karluks were initially aligned with the Tang and betrayed them mid-battle, turning on their allies. Regardless of the precise scenario, the infusion, or betrayal, of the Karluks proved devastating for the Tang. Overwhelmed by the combined Abbasid and Karluk assault, most of General Gao Xiangqi's army was annihilated. Only a few thousand Tang troops managed to escape the battlefield, leading the Abbasids victorious and solidifying their dominance in Transoxiana. The full extent of the Battle of Talas's influence on the region remains a subject of debate. While some argue it marked a definitive turning point, others point to additional factors that shaped the region's future. The Abbasids, still consolidating their power after overthrowing the Umayyads, quickly worked to rebuild strong diplomatic ties with the Tang dynasty. Shortly after the battle, the Abbasids dispatched envoys to the Tang capital of Chang'an, where they were received cordially, suggesting that despite their military confrontation, both empires recognized the mutual benefits of diplomacy and trade. China remained interested in further expanding its influence in Central Asia. However, these ambitions were abruptly halted several years later by one of the bloodiest uprisings in history, the An Lushan Rebellion, which devastated the Tang dynasty and forced them to shift their focus inward. This internal turmoil led to the erosion of Tang influence in the region, leaving a power vacuum that facilitated the Abbasids' continued rise. The battle certainly helped set the stage for the solidification of Abbasid rule, which would remain in power for roughly 500 years, particularly in Transoxiana, and laid the groundwork for long-term Muslim dominance in the region. While other factors likely played a role, the Abbasids' control fostered a cultural and economic transformation in key Silk Road cities, such as Samarkand and Bukhara. The period also saw an increased exchange of knowledge, as texts from China and other major civilizations were translated into Arabic, fueling the burgeoning Islamic Golden Age and advancing fields such as science, mathematics, and philosophy. While the short-term effects of the Battle of Talas define the immediate political and cultural dynamics of Central Asia, its broader historical significance lies in its role as a catalyst for several world-changing shifts. The Abbasid control of Central Asia following the battle enabled their religious influence to extend to the surrounding tribes, most notably the Turkic people. Over time, this influence facilitated the Islamic conversion of groups like the Seljuks, who would migrate westward into Anatolia when their local power waned, eventually becoming the Ottoman Turks. These migrations carried Islamic influence into what would later become the Ottoman Empire, a power that endured into the 20th century, shaping the region's religious landscape for centuries. The battle also played a pivotal role in the dissemination of papermaking, a tightly held secret in China at the time. While isolated uses of paper have been identified in Europe prior to the 8th century, the process of papermaking itself was probably widely unknown. Though debated, many historians attribute the capture of Chinese soldiers at Talas, some of whom reportedly possessed knowledge of the papermaking process, as the moment when this world-changing technology began to spread westward. The knowledge first permeated Muslim territories, eventually reaching Europe, revolutionizing administration, education, and communication up to today, and with no end in sight. While trade may have also played a role, the battle is seen by many as the key point in paper's journey across cultures. Despite its profound impacts, the Battle of Talas remains relatively obscure compared to other pivotal historical conflicts. Yet its importance lies not just in the clash itself, but in the ripple effect that shaped the religious, cultural, and technological trajectory of the region and beyond. It marked the confrontation of two major and distinct cultures and almost certainly shaped the long-term power and social dynamics of the surrounding regions, laying the groundwork for the foundation of major empires and technological advancements that reshaped civilizations. I hope you enjoyed this video and found this period in history both informative and enlightening. Please feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below, and I hope you can join us for another video. Thanks for watching.